T-minus 1 minute. T-minus 50 seconds. T-minus 40 seconds. T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Own it, own it, own it, Kong. I own it. It did.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. And welcome to the Wow Superheroes After Show. Coming at you live every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time to talk about those women of wrestling that we love so much. Of course, I'm your girl, Stephanie Hardy, host and creator of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, host and writer for Women's Wrestling Talk, and color commentator featured on the Belladonna Division, Battle Club Pro, and Black Girl Magic 2022. But of course, I'm not alone. I am with my sister, my tag team partner, super mom extraordinaire, and just all the things, host and creator of In Cat We Trust, and an amazing writer in her own right, Katrina Blake. How are you, Kat?
I am well, tired. It's been a bit of a crazy Monday, but I am well and happy to be here.
Yes, to quote Prince, whose anniversary of his passing that we did just acknowledge, it was just another manic Monday, okay? Now, the Bangles made that song and actually sung the song, but he wrote it, so for those who don't know. But yeah, it was a manic Monday. But yeah, I totally get it. We're here to talk this wrestling after, going through all the struggles of the Monday blues, but we're together and that's all that matters. So this episode of WoW was pretty lit for the most part. The main event was pretty fire, but we'll get into that later. Katrina, how did you feel about this episode of WoW Superheroes and what did it offer for you?
It was a solid episode. Again, I was excited about, we got to see some solo action with Stephy Slays, and then we've been kind of seeing them and Amber Rodriguez kind of teamed up. And so it was kind of nice to see some solo action. It was also nice to see the main event. I was really excited about the main event. And then we kind of got, reacquainted with some people we haven't seen in a couple of weeks. And so I thought this was a really awesome episode. It's something I do always enjoy about WoW is that they make sure to keep the roster fresh. And so, if we might not have seen somebody like a week or two, then we kind of see them in like 2 weeks. And I always appreciate that they make sure we see the whole roster. So that's good.
Yeah, this episode was fire. Like, it was packed with really great action and really great stories as well. And here again, you see that evolution of the production value of how they're telling their stories outside of the ring as well. So, wow, it's just moving on up there every single month. And it's just really great to see. So, of course, we got to get into the action of it all. So, our first match was Amber Rodriguez, friend of the pod and just friend of life, period, versus Stephy Slays, WoW OG. And this match was pretty amazing for the most part because here lately, Stephy Slays and Amber Rodriguez had locked up in terms of tag team action. But of course, now they're fighting each other, one-on-one. And this was really refreshing refreshing for me to see because of course, I never get mad at Amber Rodriguez on my television because big ups to her. She's amazing and super talented. But of course, I was wondering how is she going to fare against Stephy Slays, who is somebody who has kind of had her number over the past couple of weeks. So this match was pretty fire. Amber Rodriguez was showing lots of fun and fiery attitude. Like she even caught an attitude with Lauren Hunkley, the ring announcer, trying to take the spotlight off of her because of her outfit. I was like, oh, Amber, not you being sassy and mean now. But either way, that's what was going on. And Amber Rodriguez started off really aggressively. She was shoving Steffi Slays, and as you can see in that picture there, she was kicking her in her face in the corner. Like it was just lots of crazy stuff going on. But Steffi continued to fight back. There was one point where she hit a sunset flip with a hip toss for a 2 count to Amber Rodriguez. Like Steffi was not, letting Amber just sort of run over her. Like she was continuing to have that offense against Amber Rodriguez, who was just really aggressive throughout the entire match with her right foot kicks and pulling her hair and just snatching on it and everything. And she even kept adding insult to injury with a lot of the moves that she kept hitting. It's just like for every move she would hit, it was like she would just insult her by rubbing her head against the mat, trying to yank her hair out and stuff like that. It was like she was trying to make her ugly. Like I was just like, girl, what are you doing? And then it's so funny because on commentary they were talking about how Steffi sort of changed her hair lately and how people on social media kind of had something to say about it. But honestly, it's your body and your choice, and whatever it is that you choose to do with it, you can do with it, okay? And Steffi is beautiful regardless. And I'm not just saying that because I'm biased. Um, but either way, this match was pretty amazing. Amber Rodriguez hit a backbreaker and a lot of different things. And then throughout the match, you could hear the audience chanting, "Let's go, Steffi, clap, 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 clap." Y'all know how we do at them shows. So it was a really good match. And in the end, Steffi Slays wound up winning. Like it was really cool to see her win with that pin that she used in that picture. I definitely wasn't expecting her to win at first because they kept kicking out of each other's moves so much. But Steffi Slays wound up winning, and Amber did not like that. She was trying to, fight her even after the match, but the referee Paige Prince of Ali was not having that, and so she kept her away from her as Steffi Slays celebrated her win. So Steffi won this match. So Katrina, how did you feel about the performance of Steffi Slays and Amber Rodriguez here?
It was a nice, like, fun pace type match. I did like that it was a lot of back and forth, and I even liked that we kind of knew this version of Amber was a bit more sassy, but she definitely, I think, showed it off more. And I think maybe because she was doing a solo match this week, or well, this past week, that she was showing more of that sassiness because she kind of already had it there. When she decided to have her little rebirth off of Sahara Spears, and so so I like that we kind of saw more of the sassiness. I was like, oh, okay, not to get bad at the ring announcer because she didn't do anything, but also I did like that it showed a little bit more into the fact that this is kind of what this character is. I do think there was a lot of good back and forth because they was kicking out of each other pens often. Actually, I thought it was like really high paced, and that's good. Just like if you're trying to like get into the show and start it off, having a match that's like energetic like that was perfect, and so I thought it was a good open to the show.
It really was. And you can see that Steffi Slays has a connection, with the fans. And I thought that was really cool how they were bigging her up and cheering for her and stuff like that. But here again, you have the aggression of Amber Rodriguez. You do have to turn up that action and that offense in order to fight somebody like her. So Steffi did a phenomenal job. But then again, so did Amber. And hopefully we'll see more of Amber and Steffi as WoW continues to grow and elevate, in the next year or so. So big ups to those women for starting off the episode with that. But Steffi Slays was your winner. So before we get to our next match, we had a little bit of storytelling going on backstage between outside of that, we had storytelling like with the recap of what happened on a few weeks ago's episode where the Fab Four and the Island Dynasty got to fighting, which of course fed into their main event leading into this episode for that. So that was really cool. But we did get an update on the mother truckers trying to find their big rig, and they wound up having to go all the way back to Tennessee in order to get it. And then once they went back to Tennessee, they ran up on this dude who said, "Oh, y'all must be those wrestlers from California." And then Holly Swag was like, "Look, just give us our keys and we won't have any problems." And he was like, "All right, you got to wrestle me for him, right?" And she was like, "Don't try me." And she wound up kicking him in his privates and taking the keys out of his pocket, and they got the big rig back. And it's so funny that they had to take the bus all the way from California to Tennessee. Like, I can't even imagine that. Like, it's already a little bit tumultuous to fly from California all the way back to, Alabama. So to have to take the bus there, I know they had to be tired. But either way, I'm glad that they got their big rig back. So that was cool. And then another backstage segment that they showed was between Coach Campanelli and Randi Rah Rah. And they were, sort of playing around a little bit, and Randi was asking the coach if she could, get herself a whistle, because she wanted to have a whistle along with coach. But then they got a knock on the door and they got a visit from Samantha Smart. And she basically, knocked on the door and called Randi Rah Rah Patty Pom Pom or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, these insults. And then Samantha said, it's pretty interesting. And I commend you for being smart enough for trying to come up with a plan to defeat the tag team champions with their own tactics. It was clever, but it wasn't smart, because if it was smart, y'all wouldn't have gotten caught. And she proceeded to insult them more by calling them chump Campanelli and Patty Pom Pom. And then she called them C minus talent and left the locker room. But then she also gave Coach Campanelli's whistle to Randi, and Randi wanted to blow in it. So she blew in it, but she couldn't take the whistle out because Samantha added glue to it. So Samantha has just been on some demon time for the past couple of episodes, from towing the mother trucker's big rig to gluing the whistle to Randi Rah Rah's mouth. She just been acting all kinds of bad. Katrina, what do you think Samantha Smart has cooking up, and why is she playing mind games with all the tag teams?
I think, she's Samantha Smart. I feel like she's thinking she's going to outsmart them by doing these kind of things. I feel like you can kind of get in their heads or do things that might not be like in the, that might kind of mess them up or mess up them on in the A game during matches. Well, if it works, I guess that was a smart thing. And so I'm thinking that's what she's trying to do. I think she's just kind of seeing if she can outsmart them and do what a good manager is supposed to do. Just make sure you kind of like, how we said about like Lana, where like she made sure to kind of make sure her stable kind of got where they needed to be. I feel like in this regard, she's just trying to make sure she kind of put her team one up. And so I think that's what she's trying to do in this.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that is what she's trying to do, but it just seems like she's getting more and more malicious with it, and I really don't. I think this low key reminds me of the time Zelina Vega poisoned Montez. And this was during the pandemic era, so I know we've been through a lot since then, but it just put me in the mind of when she poisoned Montez and then denied it, you know, and said, I didn't do it. I didn't do it, in the face of Bianca, but Bianca wasn't having it. And she took off her earrings and beat her up in her own house on her own Twitch stream. It was hilarious. Like, this is low-key what it reminded me of, how managers will go to extreme lengths just to, let their people, be on top in any way, shape, or form. And Samantha is definitely doing that. And it's crazy and it's, devious, but it seems to be working. So all of this led to match number 2, which was the Disciplinarian and GI Jane, with Samantha Smart accompanying them, versus Coach Campanelli and Randi Rah Rah. And a lot of people were questioning, on commentary, like, is Randi going to actually come out and fight with this whistle glued to her mouth? Is she going to do it? Will Coach have to find somebody else to do it? Will Randi have to go to the hospital to get it removed? All of the questions. But Miss Randi showed that she has spirit, no pun intended, because she came out there and wrestled that match anyway. And she was real mad. So she came out there and threw her pom-poms. Like, she didn't even make her whole entrance. She threw her pom-poms at Samantha Smart, and she was pissed off. Like, it was funny. I had never seen her so mad, like, since this iteration of WoW had started. But outside of that, and outside of her trying to go after Samantha Smart, Coach Campanelli and GI Jane started off. And it was a really good athletic start, as you can see here, with Coach Campanelli basically slinging GI Jane around, which I thought was really interesting and really strong, considering GI Jane is not a small girl. Like, she is really tall and really statuesque and muscular in that way. So to see her, hitting a hip toss on her like that was just like, wow, okay, I see you, coach, being strong. Um, and then there was another impressive point where GI Jane hit a triangle choke onto Coach Campanelli that she couldn't break out of a little bit, but then she had to like scramble to break out of it. And I was just like, man, I wish GI Jane was a face so I could cheer for her, because she's just awesome. It's like the more she's in the ring, the more she impresses me with her attitude and her athleticism. I'm just like, girl, why can't you be a face? Why did you have to turn? It's so hard. But either way, Randi, of course, got tagged in a couple times. And even when she tried to hit a lot of her high flying moves like we know her for, she would always get winded and couldn't breathe simply because, that whistle was still glued to her mouth. And it was just so sad to see, because she really was trying, but it was just too much for her at certain points. But coach got tagged in, and then she proceeded to give the disciplinarian the business. But then at another point, Randi got tagged in, and she was looking like she wanted to fight Samantha, who also kept interfering and rubbing Coach Campanelli's face against the ropes and everything, and using that yardstick that she's famous for and everything. So they was just using all kinds of dirty shenanigans to try to get the win in this match. And Randi seemed to be so focused on getting her revenge that she wound up getting distracted by Samantha Smart, and the disciplinarian locked her in a chokehold and then also held her nose so she would pass out. And then the referee did something that was very questionable. He rang the bell and called the match in favor of the disciplinarian and GI Jane. And I was just like, what are you doing? Chad, Ref Chad, because I am starting to call these people by name now. What were you doing? Why did you call the match in favor of them when you saw her squeezing her nose and basically suffocating her so she could, get out? And yeah, you could call that a submission, but at the same time, Randi was compromised with that whistle being glued to her mouth. So I feel like that should have been a disqualification, considering they're DQing Chainsaw for every time she uses an illegal choke. Technically, the disciplinarian hit an illegal choke by holding her nose in a special situation. So they shouldn't have won that match, but for fact's sake, they won the match. So, Kat, how did you feel about this and the progression of everything that has gone on between team tough discipline and team spirit?
I felt like when we first, a few weeks ago, when they kind of had that little conversation in the back, I think this is when they were still kind of going to the tag titles at the time. I kind of saw this eventually it'll be a thing. And so in this scenario, I don't know how Chad, and it's just, I have a saying about how I feel about Chads. And usually when I hear Chad, I'm like, oh, you one of those. I feel like Chads, you fall under the like kind of the shenanigan guy vibe, kind of the douchey type vibes when I think of a Chad. That's usually I'm like, oh, you're a Chad, and I just automatically. So Chad, I was hoping that this referee for Chads would be like, you know what, we'll all not with the shenanigans, and then he does this, and I'm like, you see, Chad, you didn't help your fellow Chad brethren with this, because now I'm like, even the official Chad is pure shenanigans. I'm like, clearly this is Chads all around. It's just ill all around. I'm like, how do you not see that this could have been like a bad situation? And while I know it's part of the story, in regards to like, if my mouth is glued shut and now you're holding my nose, well, where I'm breathing from. And I feel like that in itself, with any kind of common sense, should have been enough for the referee to be like, you know what, we're not gonna. But instead, and I'm like, so we're just gonna ignore this part, huh? Like, she came in the ring with this, so it's not like something happened in the ring and you was confused by any of this. This actually happened coming into the ring, so you was aware. So it's like, if you see that happening and clearly it's not like some kind of struggling, and it's not because of submission, it's like, do your job, referee. And so he didn't really help his Chad brethren with this, because I'm like, oh, even you, even you. Otherwise, I did like the action between them, and I kind of have to agree with you with GI Jane, because she's actually really good, but it's kind of hard to cheer a person, when you want. It's kind of like how I like sometimes mention, like, Randy Orton used to irritate my soul when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But as an adult, I had to kind of appreciate, like, there's very few people who can make you really just not like a person. He did it well.
Yes.
And I feel like in this regard, though, it's like she's talented, but it's like, ew, look what you do. And it makes it hard to be like, yay, sis, because, Black queens. But also, like, no, look what you're doing. And so it makes it really hard to want to cheer you on, because I'm like, no, you're being this. You're not, no. And so that's unfortunate. And I guess that's what you're supposed to do as a heel. And you're supposed to make people like, oh, why are we doing this? Unless you're a person who like to cheer for the heels, you're going to be like, ew, what's this? So I think she's doing that well. But it does make me feel a little sad, because I'm like, oh, I want to be like, yes. Because she's like the unconventional too. Short hair and everything. And I feel like it's nice to kind of see that. Again, I like wrestlers not fitting necessarily in what you expect the stereotype box to fit into. And so I like that she's kind of the opposite of what you might expect. And to have this, kind of athletic, but she got height, got a good, all these things. And again, this is not a shade anybody who has a different body shape. I just mean, like, there's certain things we are known to see from Black women in wrestling. And so it's kind of nice to see that. But then for her to be such a heel, you're like, oh man, I can't even cheer properly, because look at what you're doing. Otherwise, I thought it was a really good tag match. And I do think that because it seems like they moved them away from the Fab Four, at least when it comes to Team Spirit, that this is kind of going to be the new feud for a little bit. And so I think with all of this happening with this type of underhanded techniques, it's going to be a feud for a while. And I think they gave a really good match, even though it got real like, how you didn't see that, bro? Like that kind of situation.
Yeah, it's really interesting how that happened. And it was just, that was just a bad call by the referee. So the disciplinarian, the thing about the disciplinarian and GI Jane is that they do not mind having repeat matches with people. So to your point, I do believe that they will probably have a rematch. And also considering since Samantha Smart came at them so wrong, and came at them so ugly in their dressing room, I'm more than sure that they would definitely want more of an even footing when it comes to, fighting them again. And as far as I know, we still have yet to see Samantha Smart really fight in a match, haven't we? Like, we haven't seen her fight. So it's just like, if she gets to fight in the ring against, like, maybe if Randi and Coach Campanilli can find someone to even up the odds, then that would be a really interesting, faction versus faction fight type of deal. So yeah, that was really cool. So yeah, the disciplinarian and GI Jane got the win. Even though it was a questionable win with an asterisk, we'll still mention it because it was a fact and they won. So that's where we are in the today of things. So we did go into a recap of Candy Crush, being ganged up on in her last fight. And then we also saw Princess Aussie come to her defense. So of course, next week, they will be participating in a tag team match versus Exile. That's Genesis and Exodus. They did announce that. And that's going to be really interesting to see how Candy and the Princess, mesh their styles together and hopefully form a tag team with good chemistry. So before we go into our next match, considering we're at the halfway point of the episode, we're going to pay some bills real quick with a commercial, and we'll be right back.
Hey peeps, TK Trinidad here, boss lady of Women's Wrestling Talk. And I want to say thank you so much for watching, because you've got millions of options. Plus, you don't have to worry about sharing your password to check us out. But while you're here, hopefully we have so many more shows to watch, like Turnbuckle Glam, Raw post-show, WoW post-show, AEW Dynamite post-show, Women's Wrestling Army post-show, NXT post-show, Impact Wrestling post-show, AEW Rampage and SmackDown Live post-show, On the Scroll, ROH post-show, WWT Live, plus all of our interviews with the hottest women's wrestlers in the game. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Check out our website at www.talkpod.com and follow us on all social media platforms at www.talkpod, and make sure to spread the word. That means send this to the group chat. Yes, even the person with the green bubble. Thanks again so much for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Ciao for now.
Of course, shout out to our boss lady, TK Trinidad, for everything that she does for us in and outside of the wrestling world. And of course, check us out throughout the week and see all of our shows, our amazing post shows, and our amazing news, and all of the things that we've got in store. We are a fully functional and fully running channel. So, for whatever floats your boat in the wrestling world, we got a show for it. So, check it out, check it out, check it out, check it out, check it out. So, yeah. Moving forward with the rest of the episode of WoW Superheroes, we got a match number 3 between the team that's known as the Banditos. That's Sylvia Sanchez and Vivian Rivera, accompanied by Sophia Lopez, the greatest attorney in the world, versus Jessie Jones and Americana. But as it turns out, of course, this wound up not working because, of course, Jessie Jones did get injured in her last match when her and Americana were fighting the Heavy Metal Sisters, and they decided to take upon themselves to try to break her knee. And she came out there walking in this episode with crutches, and she was still trying to fight, okay? Jessie Jones does not care. If it's one woman who doesn't care about injuries and doesn't care, about, situations where it seems like she wouldn't have the upper hand, she gonna still fight, and that's Jessie Jones. Okay, that is her all day long. But David McLean, who we need to have on here at some point, was not having it. He was just like, look, I am not gonna put your health and safety in danger by putting you in this match. So this isn't going to happen. Jessie, you are not going to fight. You can be out here to be in Americana's corner, but as far as going in the ring, you're not doing it. So Americana said that she is ready for whatever challenge happens. So now we had a singles match between Americana and Sylvia Sanchez. So this match turned out to be pretty decent for the most part. We got to see more of what Sylvia has to offer in terms of her in-ring work, because of course, she just made her debut along with Vivian Rivera, who we are mostly familiar with since the beginning of this iteration of WoW. Of course, this match started with a lockup, and then Americana had the upper hand at the beginning of the match with a power slam, drop kick, and actually flipped into Sylvia in the corner of the ring. And then she hit a DDT for a near fall and then went for a backflip, but then Vivian Rivera wound up tripping her up as she bumped into the ropes, for her backflip, as she always does. And this would go on throughout the match, how Vivian would just interfere on behalf of Sylvia a lot of the time. That would go on, but then Americana would continue to fight through it. And I believe she may have tweaked her back in this match a little bit, but she kept fighting through it, but she kept favoring her back as well. So that was really interesting. But she kept, that offense that we know her for, with those flips and kicks and whatnot throughout the match. And Sylvia would kick you and also hit you with a number of suplexes as well. So she was fighting back, and it was a nice little back and forth between the two. But at one point, there was a distraction that the referee had to deal with outside of the ring when Sophia Lopez decided to use her suitcase to hit Jessie Jones in her injured knee, and of course knocked her off of her crutches. And then Vivian Rivera and Sophia basically, just continued to gang up on Americana, and Sylvia covered up Americana for the win. And then they celebrated outside of the ring. So Sylvia wound up winning and celebrated with Vivian and Sophia Lopez afterward. So here again, this was a little bit dirty, and this referee, Ben, be going through it a lot of the time. So he was distracted with Jessie and with Sophia and with Vivian. So he had to keep his head on a swivel. But either way, and Americana was distracted by what was going on too, because her and Jessie are friends, and she didn't want her to get any more hurt than she already was. But it looks like, she couldn't help that, and she wound up losing the match because of it. So, Sylvia Sanchez is the winner. So, Katrina, how did you feel about this match and all the shenanigans taking place with the Banditos?
It definitely was a lot of shenanigans. And, it's a little weird to kind of see Vivian, and because again, we was introduced to her, she was like, it's a very different side of her. And so we was like, oh, she's working hard, she's trying to make a name, and it's a whole different 180. what we're getting now from her. It's not necessarily a bad thing in regards to, because I feel like she's like wrestling a lot more tougher, but it was kind of also nice to see what Sylvia can do solo, because we really just got introduced to her like maybe 2 weeks ago. I feel like it was 2 weeks ago when we got introduced to her, and so we're really trying to figure out, well, what is your skill set and what are you doing as far as this group. Now, I'm not sure what happened to Tormenta, because that was, Sylvia kind of was saying that this is the greatest person, like the greatest wrestler in the world, and like you knew you the greatest attorney, and so I'm like, all right, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, he just moved on to the next team, and so I'm like, well, what happened that you're kind of not really concerned about? And she was a fantastic wrestler as well, and so like, what happened with that you kind of moved on? Is this something that could be an issue later on? She comes back, you kind of forgot about me, moved on to the next group of people. Like, is this going to be another situation where it might be a stable situation happening with another person who's kind of like, oh, I got somebody who's kind of dominant, and then I have a tag team situation like we do with the Fab Four? This can go quite a few ways with this, but it was, and again, while I get trying to pay attention, and I think it was a good reference, I guess, to try to make sure Jessie Jones was okay. It was also like, but you should have been paying attention to the match as well, because it was like, I get it. It's like you're concerned, and I know me, I would be concerned as well. But then also like, stuff like this happens, so you can be distracted. Like maybe just try to pay a little bit more attention to what's going on in the ring. This is why a lot of stuff keeps happening apparently, because they don't be paying enough attention, or they like ignore things that's like, come on, ref. And so he's not as bad as Chad to Chad was, because Chad clearly was doing shenanigans. But I understand in his regard it was more concern, and that's why he was trying to really kind of it wasn't like he was distracted. It was more like, okay, but she was off crutches now. There's a little bit more concern than just somebody doing some nonsense, and you're just like, oh, I don't see what's happening in the ring. But it was kind of nice to see what Sylvia can do. And again, I'm kind of curious if would this been at the stable situation? Like, oh, there's somebody who could take on the Fab Four, because again, she's tournament with somebody else who was actually very dominant. And I thought she wrestled Penelope Pink at some point. I feel like maybe I'm confusing her with somebody else. I thought they wrestled earlier when we first started watching this iteration, but we may can get that. Sylvia can talk. She can talk, but so can Lana. I feel like this could really be a thing. If they decide to really go that route, where it's now we have a 4-4. Just the Latinas, and then the bougie blondes. Like I feel like we can really do something with that if they decide to go that route. But otherwise, I thought it was a really good match.
Yeah, it was a really good match, and that's a really good point that you brought up. It's just like Sophia could be coming up with her own little fashion, and we don't even know, because we haven't seen Tormenta like in forever. Like, where has she been at? Like, honestly, I have a theory about where Tormenta might be, and I feel like I keep bringing this up every other week, but I'm gonna keep bringing it up until we have a definitive answer as to what happened. I feel like Tormenta is still on my list for people who could have attacked the Beast in the alley and re-injured her, because she was in that triple threat match what the Beast won against her and Randa Del Rey. So it's just like, she's been gone for so long, so it would make sense if she were in hiding, so people wouldn't even suspect that it would be her. Like, that's funny how she's been gone all that time, and yes, and the Beast has been absent all that time too, and then she had to give up the title too. And you would think that, with Tormenta, being the best, that Sophia was making it seem like she was, and maybe she would have been in contention for the world title, but she never even necessarily came back for that either. So it's just like, girl, where you been at? So I think that's interesting, and I love that you brought her up, because she has been missing, here lately over the past couple of weeks on WoW. So if she were to come back and realign with Sophia, and the Banditos, that would be an amazing faction there to go up against your Fab Fours, or go up against, the Island Dynasty. That would be cool if that was a thing. But I guess she would have to return for us to see how that would happen. I hope she's doing okay, because I would hate to have to put her in the same, box that we had to put Adriana Gambino, because she disappeared too. And Gigi Gianni had to tag with Amber Rodriguez. So
yeah, I would love to know what happened to some of them. I'm like, we got no type of closure. Like, give me something. Just give me a little something. I just want to know they good. They all right. Everything good. Just I'm hoping they're okay. I do hope everybody's well. But it is kind of like, you're like, oh damn, they've been gone for some weeks. It's been a time in a little minute. Like we're now in 2023. We're in late April now. They've been gone for a little minute now. So I mean, we went through a whole year. A new year came in, and we're
Yes.
still like, oh, where are y'all? Like, so hopefully they're fine. But I mean, maybe they'll give us something because there's been nothing, and I'm like, can y'all give us just a little, find out like what's going on here, unless it's something way bigger that they're gonna make this whole beast thing, and then maybe it's a joint effort for all we know. The beast is the beast, maybe it was a joint effort. Maybe multiple people try to have their hands in making sure she was out for a while. You never know, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's crazy. You really will never know. But I guess, we just don't want to put folks in the missing box and the sick and shut in. So either way, it'll be fine, and those are really good ideas. So we just got to see how it will evolve. So yeah, that's pretty much all that happened in that match. But the Banditos came out with the win, and Sophia Lopez celebrated, with her new acquisition. So that happened. So after that, we got the announcement that next week, Fury, Razor, and from the Heavy Metal Sisters, Wrecking Ball and Reina Del Rey will be fighting each other in a fatal four-way match. So we have that to look forward to next week, along with the tag team match with Exile versus Princess Aussie and Candy Crush. So they made that announcement, and of course, this led into our main event, which I've been waiting for all the reasons, and y'all can pretty much guess them if you've been watching this after show. We have the Island Dynasty, which is made up of Leia, Makoa, Tiki, Chamorro, and the Tonga Twins versus the Wild World Champion Penelope Pink, Vickie Lynn McCoy, their enforcer, the Carlson Twins, Miami Sweet Heat, the Wild Tag Team Champions, accompanied to the ring by the fabulous Lana Star and the Fab Four, fighting each other in an 8-woman tag team match. And this match was everything, okay? This match was so much of everything that when I watched this episode, it was recorded and I had to watch it back again because it was just so cool. This match was amazing. Thank you. So it was amazing. Like, I couldn't even fully take notes for this match. Like, this was a match where I had to put my pencil down and just look at. All of these women did a phenomenal job. The Tonga Twins, they had a bit of a standoff with the Carlson Twins, which sort of called back to their match in the tag team tournament that Miami Sweet Heat wound up winning due to the interference of Lana and Penelope. Like, they had their little moment. And then you also had Leia Makoa, who impressed the mess out of me in this match because she was throwing Vickie Lynn McCoy like she was a sack of potatoes, like it was nothing. Leia was not scared of her, because something that Vickie Lynn McCoy likes to do, she loves to intimidate people based off of her size and say she'll run into you like a F5 tornado in Oklahoma, which is true. She will run into you. But I guess today she ran up on Category 5 Leia because Leia was not in the mood. She was not in the mood for it, okay? Because they had messed her up and tried to gang up on her after that world title match she had with Penelope Pink, and she was knocking her out, punching her, slinging her over her hips and everything, like beating up on her. It was to the point to where Vickie Lynn was even shook herself. Like, she had her knee on her face, and Vickie was like, "Oh my God, get it off, get it off!" I was just like, "Yes, let her know." Let her know, okay? And then even Tiki, she got a little bit of offense in, but not a whole lot. And this is where I got kind of irritated because it's just like you made the Tonga Twins, Leia and Makoa, look super strong, in the match, throughout. But then Tiki, she did a little bit, but she just didn't perform enough for me to where it was just like, come on, Tiki. Like, y'all be playing her just because she's small, but I mean, she's really fierce, okay? And she will, hit you with that ground and pound. And I just didn't see enough of that in this match, and I was frustrated with it. But throughout the rest of it, like, all of it was cool. And even Penelope Pink did a good job. Yeah, she did a good job because she actually hit a dive onto, or at least tried to hit a dive onto both of the Tonga Twins, but then they wound up picking her up and throwing her across the ring. Like, it was just an amazing, show of action from all of these women. They did such a good job. And It was just so much going on. But in the end, and surprisingly, Lana Star didn't even try to get that much involved. Like, she may have tried maybe one time, but she didn't get involved like a whole lot. But in the end, the Island Dynasty came out on top. They won the match. Your winners were Tiki, Leia, and the Tonga Twins. And I actually gave a tweet. I actually tweeted, after I had finished watching it on Sunday, and said that I feel like, based off of this victory alone, that the entire Island Dynasty should get rematches for all of those titles. Put Leia against Penelope again, and have the twin versus twin match that we deserve to have without the shenanigans thrown in there, or at least even up the odds, and just give rematches for all of the titles, for all of the marbles, for all of the gold. Let it happen, because they defeated all of them decisively. Okay? So if that's the case, these women should all have rematches. And WoW saw it. Their official account saw it and retweeted it and asked for thoughts, and people agreed. So you know what? Make it happen, David. Make it happen. Do not let the Fab Four try to rule over you, because Penelope Pink told me in our interview together that they trying to take over WoW, and put David, out of his misery, and put Lana on top or whatever. But my thing is, David, don't let them run you. Don't let them run you like that, okay? So make this rematch, make it happen. But I've been talking for a long time. So Katrina, how did you feel about this match? Were you as excited as I clearly am? But yeah.
No, this was a hell of a main event. This was great. It was really nice to see. And, I know you have your beef with the Fab Four, in particular with Penelope Pink. But in this regard, this is, I guess, how you kind of see how well they work together. And so, like, I felt like this is where you kind of see why Lana have them together. You kind of see why they're a unit. Outside of the fact that they like, the fabulous stuff and the good lifestyle, you can see how they work as a unit. And I like that. I do like that Leia McCoy was just like, I really don't care how big you are. And not that I am not a wrestler. I say this all the time, but I'm very much the same way. Like, so I don't know who you think you're talking to. And I know I'm a tiny person because I am, but not me. Like, it's that kind of like, I'm like, that's, and that was just a relatable thing for me. Like, yes, because I'm the same way. I don't really care how big you are. I do not
Yes.
care. We're just not doing the shenanigans. I don't care who you are. And so I appreciated that she wasn't going to let Vickie intimidate her, and because she is good for that. And there was none of that. I loved, obviously, Tonga Twins are always, always, always on it, always dominant. And I'm going to have to agree with the Tika thing, because I'm like, all right, like, I know you're nice, and I know that sometimes, but in this situation, when you got the stuff that's been happening the last couple of weeks, we could have allowed her to do a little bit more in that regard, because they've been messing with her. And I know she'd like the quiet one. And again, again, I can be quiet, but also I don't really handle nonsense well. It's like, I'm quiet, and if I don't know you, you're probably not going to hear much from me. If I'm not comfortable, I'm kind of probably going to be like just kind of paying attention, but not really saying much. But I don't do shenanigans well. I don't do bullshit well. And so I'm like, oh, you hear me then? That is a quick way to hear me if you do something I'm not really fond of. And so I would have been great to kind of see her like respond to the fact that they've been messing with her for weeks. And that, you had your other three, island sisters with you. So it wasn't like you wouldn't have had your back. You had somebody to hold your back. And so I don't know why in regard, and maybe it's just like, maybe she'll get a little bit more tougher going on. I don't want to assume, but I was just a little peeved, because I was like, all right, because hello, was we all not seeing what we see in the last couple of weeks? However, absolutely fantastic main event. Absolutely fantastic. I thought all 8 of them kind of showed you why this was a main event. And it's so good to be like, oh, like, we kind of knew it was going to be like, oh, it's going to be some stuff when we knew this match was coming. But I'm like, oh, it was really nice to see it play out. It was really nice to see, like, ooh, this can really be something. I feel like you mentioned previously, when we was talking about, this could be very well like another thing with like, Sophia and Sylvia and Vivian and maybe Tormenta. Like, oh no, like, we don't even need a manager for, we don't even need a manager for them. They can just do what they need to do. We don't even need a mouthpiece to kind of talk for them. Look who you have on this team. You have Tonga's dominant people who they can work with each other well. You have Leia McCoy, who really don't care about size. And then we had to think about the other matches she's had as well, when clearly size is not a problem for her. And like, even if the opponent is a little bit more imposing. And so it was absolutely fantastic main event.
Yes, it was thrilling. Like, it was just fire. It was everything you could ask for from a WoW main event. It was just an amazing way to end that episode. Like, it was just really good. Like, that main event was everything that they advertised it to be and more. So it was fan freaking tastic. And the Island Dynasty wound up on top. And I know they better get their rematches, and that's all I care about, because I want to see the Tonga Twins as the tag team champions, because they deserve to be. They really deserve to be. And I know Lana Star, wants to hold on to them titles, with as hard as she can, but dang it, you can't snatch them away like that. And the Island and these women, all of them, like both groups of women did a phenomenal job. They huffed and puffed and blew the house down. Okay? So it was just really good, and that was an amazing way to end this episode of Wow Superheroes. It was amazing. So thank you guys for watching the Wow Superheroes after show. We've come to the end of our time together. But of course, like we always say, please support women's wrestling as a whole, and also support Wow Women of Wrestling wherever you can watch it. You can go on their website at WowE, that's WOWE.com, and see what channel it comes on for you, wherever you're located in the country, in the United States or wherever. But they are trying to shift over to India. I did see that they're working on a deal to, have their show shown in India. So I think that's really good too. So maybe it'll be Wow Worldwide. That would be really cool. So yeah, like wherever you're looking for it in the United States, please go on their website and search for where you can watch it and support these women, because they're doing a phenomenal job. Even though it might be a little bit different and the characters might be different and stuff like that, there's still something for you in this hour of power, as David McClain likes to say. So please check it out and support WoW, buy their merchandise, and just do all the things with WoW, and just continue to support them. But of course, if you live in the Alabama area, WoW Superheroes comes on at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, barring any sports, on Saturdays. So please watch it there. So yeah, Katrina, thank you so much for joining me, per usual. Tell everybody what you've got going on and where they can find you.
I'm on all social media platforms and Cat We Trust, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, E's a 3. I had quite a few videos just appear, card interviews and some videos. So if you like nerdy things, I did talk about some horror movie that I did watch an early screening from. So that is on there. I also did have an interview that will be live tomorrow. I just filmed that today. It will be going live tomorrow at noon Eastern time. So definitely go check that out. And if you are a 90s, raised child like I was, and I did talk about the new 30th anniversary Power Rangers movie, because hello, even if it's kind of cheesy, like I grew up on it. And so I have all of that awesome stuff on my YouTube. I am working on new stuff. I did post a Chicago panel on my channel as well over the last few days. So if you got to get a chance to watch the panel of Behind the Magic Woman of Color and Wrestling, I did do the Chicago edition. It is posted, and we had some awesome people on that panel as well, and some returning members. So different iterations, because I feel like some of us return and some don't, and it depends on what the area is happening. And so some people who was previously on the panels have returned, and some new ones, and so that's been pretty awesome. And also just want to quickly shout out Kona Tonga, because she apparently, I think, said last week she does watch the show, and so just wanted to say thank you so much. It was really awesome to see that you do watch, and that we're we enjoy what you ladies do every week. So
Yeah, that's amazing. Shout out to the Tonga Twins, Kona and Chaos, for showing us love. That's just really great. As long as we continue to big up their names, they'll big us up. And that's just really cool. We love the WoW ladies. We love them so much. So, of course, as for me, you can follow me, your girl Stephanie Hardy, on Instagram and Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy. Listen to my show, The Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and HWP Extra, everywhere you get your shows, audio wise, and also on YouTube. You can check out full episodes and full interviews on my YouTube channel, The Hardy Wrestling Podcast. This week, I will be doing a live HWP Extra on Mercedes Moné versus Mayu Iwatani from Stardom's All-Star Grand Queendom this past weekend. It was a really good match, and I'm going to talk about it. And I will be having an interview with host and content creator Chiseled Adonis later this week as well, so that's going to be exciting. That's something I've been waiting for a while. And I'm trying to think. What else I got going on? Oh yeah, whether you are a Berea College alumni or not, that's where I went to school. Listen to the podcast In Convocation With, because they had me on as a guest there, and it was really cool to be on there with Danielle, and the other host whose name is I'm blanking on right now. I'm so sorry, but either way, I was on the podcast In Convocation With, so please check that out if you have a mind to. I talk about my Berea journey all the way up into my journey as a wrestling content creator and doing all the things that I do now. So it was great to be a part of that. And also on Women's Wrestling Talks channel, you get to check out what happens when two fierce women in wrestling get to talk to each other for a short period of time with my interview with the WOW World Champion Penelope Pink. We did not tear each other apart. We had a good conversation. So please check that out if you have a mind to. It is on YouTube everywhere, so you can stream it, and it's on our website as well. And you can also get the companion article. You can read that on www.talkpod.com too. I wrote that. So please be on the lookout for that too. Like, I was really happy to write a new piece on her, as well as interview with her, and it was something that we had both been waiting for, and we were happy to do, even though in kayfabe it's still on site, but in real life we love each other. So please watch that interview. You know, if you are a fan of WOW and if you are a fan of Penelope Pink of the Fab Four, please watch that interview, and also watch the other interviews that she and Lana Star had with Katrina as well, and everything else we've got going on Women's Wrestling Talk. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at WWTalkPod. Like us on Facebook, and just visit our website and buy our merchandise and just get into everything we've got going on. Follow us on Twitch too, and just, ring the bell so you can get notified every time we go live, so you can see everything we have going on, because we are the Avengers of women's wrestling, and as long as women's wrestling continues to thrive, we gonna thrive with it. Okay. So with that in mind, this is Women's Wrestling Talk, the number one women's wrestling show on the planet. And until next time, bye y'all.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the number one women's wrestling show on the planet. Women's Wrestling Talk, the number one women's wrestling show on the planet.